on a Friday. KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. We are happy to welcome on and say hello for our Feature Friday segment. The face, whether he likes it or not, of Channel 9, KMBC. Kris Ketz is here. Hello,
God help
Chris.
us.
I like what you did there. That was meant to be a compliment.
Are you sure you have the right catch? You want to talk to Jonathan? He probably knows more than I do this week.
No. Listen, I know you've been out of town handling some family issues, but it is always great to have you here. The audience loves hearing from you.
My mother turns 88 in July, and of her two sons, I'm the closest one to the Quad Cities. And so usually it's kind of my job to go check in on her. Not that she doesn't have people checking in on her or anything like that. And she's 88, she's independent, still drives. Between you and me, she's still a pain in my rear end. Okay? I mean that in the nicest possible way.
In a loving, motherly way.
In a very loving way, yeah. But, she's good. But I just hadn't been in there up there in a couple of months, and so it was time. And so
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What does Kris Ketz do on a 6-hour drive?
Woo!
By himself.
One podcast after another.
Do you have a go-to?
Or music.
Okay. Do you have a go-to podcast?
Nah, it's just whatever pops up on TuneIn. Yeah. I'm pretty much open to anything. Typically, I am looking for a sports show, perhaps, or a game.
Okay.
Something like that. But, it could be anything. I'm pretty much open to anything. Because I don't... driving 6 hours, that's the only place I go where I'm in a car for that long.
Yeah.
And so I don't necessarily have anything that's dedicated or anything like that. It's just whatever pops up.
You don't check out all the small-town radio stations around
Every
America?
once in a while I do. It's funny because, yes, KMZU up in north central Missouri, or KMA in Shenandoah, Iowa, or...
Ooh, nice. He's rolling them off.
Absolutely. There's a station in and around Grinnell, Iowa that I will check out every once in a while. I'll pop around the stations a little bit in Des Moines, WHO, until I get to the Quad Cities. And up in the Quad Cities where I grew up, radio, like it is everywhere else, it's not anywhere near what it used to be.
I know.
And the great local voices that I remember growing up aren't there anymore. Mm-hmm. And for someone of my advanced age, that's sad.
It is. Here's the thing, though. Some of these small towns have great local operators. If they're
awesome.
Owned by the big conglomerates, and listen, we're one of them, but they probably have hollowed out the local stations. Right. But if you have local operators, they're still making money in these communities,
and they're still serving their communities.
Yes.
That's the important thing.
Yes.
They're still broadcasters, and yes, they want to make money, and yes, they should make money. That's not the point. But these are people who live there, they work there. They're your neighbors.
Yes.
And they know what you're interested in and what the issues are and the people involved. And that kind of radio, for me, just as a consumer, I can't put a price on that.
Who was your guy growing up or gal growing up?
Well, growing up in the Quad Cities, the influence of Chicago radio, a 3-hour drive east on I-80, was significant. I grew up listening to Larry Lujak on WLS. I grew up listening to Wally Phillips on WGN. I grew up listening to Jonathan Brandmeier on The Loop. I grew up listening to Bob Collins and Spike O'Dell on WGN, who happens to be a good friend of mine. Spike and I worked radio in the Quad Cities probably 40-plus years ago, and Spike went on to become a huge star at WGN. And but those are the guys that I listen to.
So I didn't realize. I think you might have said this on the show at some point. But you started in radio, or you were doing TV?
Started
and
radio.
So
1,000-watt radio station in Moline, Illinois. That no longer exists. But it was a great radio station. I was a senior in high school.
Oh,
and I got a job reading weekend news at a radio station that had just won a National Headliners Award. This was a 6-person full-time newsroom in a market of about 350,000 people. Mm-hmm. Pretty, you don't find that anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's how long ago that was.
See, I think that all TV people should do some radio.
I couldn't agree more. Yes,
it loosens you up. You can go off the cuff a little bit. You're not as stiff, and you see too much of that on local TV and national TV.
I learned how to ad-lib.
Yes,
that's how I learned how to ad-lib, and I learned how to ad-lib doing sports. And I was still in college up at St. Ambrose. And the radio station had just won a contract to do Iowa basketball home and away because Iowa City was just an hour down the road on I-80 to the west. And at the time, there were like 5 or 6 stations doing Iowa basketball. Now it's just one conglomerate network, and they feed it out to everybody else. But I'm a sophomore in college, and I got to be on the team, one of the radio stations that did Iowa basketball home and away. Now, it's why it took me 5.5 years to get out of St. Ambrose, because that year was kind of a blur. Your typical Big Ten road trip, they were Thursday, Saturday games, so you're leaving town Wednesday. You're coming back probably late Saturday night, Sunday, so there was a lot of class that I missed. But it was, and I did it just for one season, and it was a wonderful experience. The play-by-play guy was a guy named Greg Schulte, who just retired a year ago as the longtime legendary play-by-play voice of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Wow.
On what was KTAR in Phoenix. And but what an amazing experience, and taught me so much.
You know, the problem, too, one of the reasons I liked play-by-play, I didn't love it because I can't really opine like you can with a talk show. But you get one of those jobs, they don't open up for 50 years in some cases.
Yes. Greg had his for going on 30 years. I mean, he was the voice of the Diamondbacks from their first moment on the field until about a year ago. And now at Chase Field in downtown Phoenix, the home radio booth is named the Greg Schulte radio
Is that
booth,
right?
Which
That's
is
great.
so cool.
That's
and
great.
And so was deserving for Greg.
If you get one of those jobs, you do a good job, you're going to have it for decades.
Yeah.
And that's the
if
thing.
you don't screw it up.
Yes. And you know what? They've been screwed up, but you're right. Now, speaking of play-by-play voices,
Yes.
you are off to, after this, the funeral for longtime KU voice, Bob Davis.
Yeah, this has been it's been a rough week for the broadcasting community here. We lost Danny Israel, the executive producer of the Chiefs Radio Network, and such a good guy.
Yep, great guy.
And Bob Davis, who I adored, and so many other people in town and in this business adored. And we lost Bob, I think, a matter of hours after he buried his wife this past week, 2 weeks ago. And so this was one that I want to go to. So.
What's your relationship going back years with Bob?
You know, in the beginning, it was just our paths crossed. Usually when the KU Jayhawks, and this goes back a long time now, you know, granted, it'll be 42 years for me at KMBC on the 4th of July. So, you know, there was a time when KU and MU and K-State happened to be in the tournament, the basketball tournament at the same time. We didn't have enough sports people to cover them all. So every once in a while, they'd take one of the news guys and send him with the team. And I ended up going with KU on more than a few trips to the Final Four. And that's how our paths would cross. That's where I met Bob Davis and Max Falkenstein, who was color on those KU games for so many years. That's how I was introduced to Bob. And then we just kind of kept in touch. And we would, the last few years, we would get together for lunch a couple of times a year, and just to catch up and see how each other was doing. And but I was such a fan of his work, as so many people were, and it's a really sad day.
It is. Yeah. He did it for 32 years,
something like that.
84 to 2016.
Yeah, more than 30. Yeah.
I got to town right after he had retired at that point, so I didn't hear him call KU games. It's been almost 10 years now since he was the voice of KU. So what made him as a broadcaster and also a person stand out to you?
Well, Bob was just an absolutely kind soul, and I think that came out across on the air. He a Kansas guy through and through. He never forgot his roots. Okay, and I also think he was also one of those guys who never took his job for granted. Okay, I think he was one of those guys who got up every day, and this was the job he wanted, and he wanted to do it in the best way he could, and probably couldn't think. There was probably a time in his life where he couldn't think about doing anything else but KU sports, but KU basketball and football. I mean, he knew where he was, and he was so appreciative of it, and I think that's why he worked as hard as he did doing what he did. And it's a tough job. I mean, people think it's easy. It's not. The hours can suck.
Yeah.
And it takes it takes a commitment, and Bob had that.
Well, and the other thing that, especially I think more so at the college ranks than the pro ranks, the play-by-play voice is in many ways a face of the program.
Yes.
Because the players come and go, the coaches come and go, and more so than the pro level, that broadcaster is oftentimes the ambassador for the team, which is part of the job, whether you like it or not. You've got to have a front-facing individual in that role.
Yeah, and for so many people, that's their connection to the team.
Yeah,
is the guy or gal on the radio, And I think, and I don't know Brian Haney. I think he does a terrific job. Very nice guy from people I know who know him. But talk about big shoes to fill. Bob Davis.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's probably going to be a packed house out in Lawrence
I suspect
today.
it will be, yeah. Later this morning in Lawrence. So, in fact, as soon as I'm done here, I head west.
Head west.
Yeah.
Kris Ketz is here on KCMO, KMBC, 95.7 FM. We'll take a quick break, come back with more. Kris Ketz, our Feature Friday guest on KCMO Talk Radio. All right, Mark, you got the clip in there. Mark's got the clip of the late Bob Davis's three-pointer from Mario Chalmers, of course, to win the national championship in 2008. Mark, let's roll it.
3-point Memphis lead. Hawks need a 3-point basket. 10.8. Here they come. Collins. 7 seconds to go in the game. Collins got pushed. Falls down. Chalmers shoots. Oh! 3. The game tied. 2.1. Memphis inbounding. A half-court shot. No good.
Unbelievable
Overtime.
shot.
Overtime.
Wow, how about that shot?
That's great. Outstanding. Well, there you go. What do you think of that, Kris Ketz?
Thank you for doing that. I'm not. Listen, I love KU. My oldest son's a graduate of MU. I love K-State. I don't have a dog in this one. Okay, I like them all, but it's for me. It's the people who are associated with those programs that make all the difference. And Bob was that guy.
Yeah, and that I did courtesy of the KU Sports Radio Network. I probably should always throw that in there. You know how that goes. Last thing I need is KU
Thanks,
coming
guys.
after us. Thank you for that. And, of course, that one forcing overtime. I remember where I was. I was in a college dorm room at Villanova watching that, and it was just, oh, my gosh, what a shot, what a moment.
Well, and you going to Villanova, not that college basketball means anything there.
Well, trust me. They got us in the 2022 Final Four, and we got them in the 2018 Final Four. So, was it 2018 Final Four? No, 2016 Final Four is what it was. 2016 Final Four. Couldn't miss from three-point range.
Yeah.
So, anyway, you're going to that funeral today. Broadcasting legend Bob Davis passing away March 20th at the age of 80 years old. So, when you think about, we've talked a lot about the industry before, Kris, where our industry is at. We talked about small-town radio. What about the TV space right now? How do you feel about it and what its future holds?
What its future holds, I'm not sure. I think right now we still have the biggest piece of the pie, but that pie is sliced in so many dozens of ways that it never was before when I started in the business. Specifically, there still seems to be even today in this diluted media environment, there still is a healthy appetite for local news. And I mean local with a capital L. And I think as long as that appetite remains, guys like you and me will probably still have a gig. But as far as what it will look like 5 years from now, I won't even hazard a guess 10 or 15 years. I'm talking immediate future, really for all intent and purposes. I'm not sure.
I was talking to one of your competitors out at the K yesterday, and we were talking about this, how it's so hard to figure out how to find people where they're at now.
Yes.
You got now, cord cutters, you got Roku apps you're trying to get a handle on.
And as a broadcast operation, you're trying to make sure that you have a presence on all of those platforms. And so it is just that side of the business and the change that was involved there. It's crazy. Like, I don't know how many cable and satellite providers carry our signal at Channel 9. It's many, many dozens at least in this market.
Yeah.
And this is a 36 county market or something in that neighborhood. But you have to be on all of them because that's where your customers are. And so finding them is one of the many things that I think has just become so much more difficult and complicated because, again, without your customers, we're not here.
Exactly. Now, do you think – you mentioned the strong local presence in this market in particular. I agree. Do you feel like that's unique for Kansas City, or do you think that that's still the case of markets of this size, still caring about local news and local information?
I think, and I'm painting a broad stroke here.
Yeah.
But, I think television stations, for the most part, once they have a team put together, a frontline team that is put together, that they have confidence in, and that obviously the audience responds to. I think John Holt across the street. John's been there a long time. Kevin Holmes has been there a long time. Brad and Carolyn, though Carolyn's about to retire, they've been there a few years. These are all familiar faces. Laura Martz has been there 30 years, my co-anchor.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember Laura when she was an intern for us, which speaks to how long I've been at my place. But Busby's been there, gosh, if I've been there 42, he's been there 37, 38. Okay. It is rare to find that kind of continuity, such as we have at KMBC. And that's why, Laura and I, we never went to anchor school. Okay. We are pretty much, who we are on the air is pretty much who we are off.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you want.
And we, we've been here a long time, and we've been, listen, we've gone through births and deaths and weddings and divorces and all of the life events that I think our audience has gone through. Mm-hmm. And maybe at the end of the day, that's one of the things that maybe helps explain why we've been around as long as we have, because we have, I think, these shared experiences with our audience. And we've also, Laura made this decision, I made this decision. This is home. This is the place where we got married and raised families. And, listen, Laura Martz remembers Jonathan Ketz when Jonathan Ketz was just born.
And now she's seeing him on a competitor. So
in fact, Laura is to Jonathan, that's Aunt Laura.
Okay. That's awesome. Okay. So I got about a minute or so. Yeah. How close did you ever come to leaving this market?
Oh, it's been a while.
Yeah.
And opportunities come along, and
it's not a bad thing. Like you said, opportunities come along.
And there was one network involved back in the day. But I just never felt like where I was at the point in my life that these opportunities came along. I just never thought that the grass was greener on the other side. I never did. And maybe it speaks to the continuity that we have at KMBC with our parent company, Hearst Television. I know all of the senior management. They're all good guys. They're broadcasters.
Yeah.
And they believe in serving the public. And I think there are probably too many operators of television stations out there who don't have the same kind of view we do.
Well, Hearst also owns a lot of radio, and they're well regarded on the radio side as well.
We don't have as many radio stations as we
but
did.
They've got a few,
but and I've said this before, if there's a better operator of television stations than the Hearst Corporation, you're going to have to show me.
Mm-hmm. Well, Kansas City's better off for having you here 42 years. My goodness.
It's kind of you to say.
Well, Kris, best at the Bob Davis funeral here coming up in a few minutes, and we appreciate you stopping by on the way over that
Anytime.
way. Kris Ketz, KMBC, every night. Appreciate him being here on KCMO Talk Radio for our Feature Friday segment. We got the news coming up in a minute. Our caller of the day is next on 95.7 FM and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? Yikes. When it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Switch to Consumer Cellular and get the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Plans start at just $20 a month, and that's not a short-term promo. But don't just take our word for it. Here's Jackie and Veronica, real customers.
I didn't know that I could get something for a lot less money that was actually better than who I was with before.
Anytime anybody complains about their cell phone bill, we say, you've got to check out Consumer Cellular.
Our U.S.-based experts will get you switched and saving in about 20 minutes. Just call or click to see how much you can save today. Because when it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit ConsumerCellular.com. That's 1-888-FREEDOM or ConsumerCellular.com today. Real people paid to share their opinions in this ad. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing.
When it comes to retirement, you need to have a different mindset with your investing. That's why Mark Falter created the Retirement Income Hour. Your mindset as you head into or are in retirement needs to transition from growth to income. In retirement, it's all about income. To help learn how this is done, be sure to lock into the Retirement Income Hour with Mark Falter. Saturday and Sunday mornings at 9. Investment advisory services offered through Mid-American Wealth Advisory Group, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm.
News. I'm CJ Papa. Monster earthquake rocks Burma and Thailand. The epicenter, 7.7 quake near Mandalay in Burma. At least 12 people are dead in the war-torn nation. The country's shadow foreign minister saying urgent international assistance is needed. In Thailand,
suddenly I started feeling the earth is shaking.
That woman in Bangkok, first responders sifting through the rubble of a building that was under construction. It tumbled to the ground. There are dead and a number of people missing at the site. Vice President J.D. Vance and a group visiting Greenland.
The stop at this Bidufik space base is going to be the headline of the trip. It's located about halfway between the United States and northern Russia, so it is as important as anywhere on this planet for missile warnings and missile defense and whatever classified stuff they have going on in space.
Fox's Peter Ducey at the White House. America's listening to Fox News.
From the KCMO Newsroom, I'm John Anthony on 95.7 FM. After grabbing an early lead, courtesy of a 3-run Vinny Pasquantino home run, the Royals lost the home opener in extra innings by a score of 7-4 yesterday. They'll have to wait a day to avenge that loss, with today being an off day on the schedule. Seth Lugo gets the start for the Royals in Game 2 of the Cleveland Guardians series Saturday afternoon at 3:10 p.m., and Michael Wacha takes the mound at 1:10 p.m. Sunday afternoon. Your next news in 30 minutes. I'm John Anthony on KCMO, now on 95.7 FM.
Sponsored by Rasmussen University. At Rasmussen University, they offer a full suite of nursing programs, from pre-licensure to doctoral online and on campus. Programs vary by campus. Learn more at rasmussen.edu/Kansas.
KCTV 5 First Warn 5 forecast.
It's going to feel more like summer once again today as temperatures are in the upper 70s, low 80s, mostly sunny skies, but windy conditions from the south-southwest at around 15 to 20 miles. Gusts up to 40 will be possible. From KCTV 5 and First Warn 5 meteorologist Savannah Tennyson.
I'm here at the racetrack with Brad McGee from LBA Home Services.
Look, that guy's pulling into the pits.
Wow, the crew moves pretty fast.
Sure do. Have you ever seen a driver change his own tires?
Well, no, he's the driver.
Got bigger things on his mind. The reason he can focus on winning the race is because he has a pit crew backing him up.
It's the only way to succeed here.
This is just a faster version of our Perfect Service family.
I'm sorry, what now?
Think about it. You're the driver of your home, and the race you're trying to win is life.
Interesting way to look at it.
Perfect Service Family is your pit crew. Twice a year, we come out and give your heating cooling system a quick tune-up.
To keep you running at peak performance.
To keep you running perfectly.
If you say so.
I do say so. At LBA, perfect is our minimum standard.
So join LBA's Perfect Service family and get a pit crew of your own.
Now you're thinking like a winner.
One simple idea, one name to remember.
Just remember LBA. LBAservices.com.
It's Mundo in the Morning, now on FM at 95.7. Set a preset on your radio. KCMO Talk Radio.
Kris Ketz, a great guy and a great guest to have in studio on a Friday on KCMO Talk Radio. Appreciate his time, and of course he is off to the funeral for the late KU broadcaster Bob Davis, who passed away at 80 years old on March 20th, hours after his wife had passed away. You know what? That's probably a pretty good way to go.
Wow. Yeah, serendipity.
You know,